Hi. Today we're going to talk about the collective consciousness. Collective consciousness is a conscious condition where everything is connected, so everyone has the same inner awareness, where all thoughts, ideas, and feelings exist in a field accessible to everyone. For ages and ages, spiritual traditions have talked about this, and they all conclude that the answers are within. So we don't have to seek, but become aware of it. The spiritual experience is for everyone. Scientists, artists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders have all tapped into this collective mind. Einstein said, "Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality." In the midst of a spiritual awakening, we become aware that we are eternal divine energy, or a consciousness connected to everything, in one collective energy. Expanding our consciousness means challenging our beliefs that imprison us and expand into the frequency where every thought affects the collective. Obi Kenobi said, "I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. I fear something terrible has happened." Star Wars, Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, and the Mayans all talk about the Force, including the dark side. We are all threads woven into a tapestry of vibrations that create our world, and with our problems, we can see the collective is positive and negative. That is why we need to understand our own darkness, bring light to it, and enlighten our lives so we can deal with the negatives of others. In our world collective, our consciousness is very high, so we are capable of laughing to lighten and enlighten our predicament. So we laugh at ourselves and with others, but never at others. Sadhguru says, "If you want to know whether you are moving forward in life, just see if you're a little more joyful today than you were yesterday." Our consciousness is set up to discover, intuit, and witness the subtle energy of objects, thoughts, and emotions. As our mind turns away from the senses, our body, the negatives, and the physical realm, we gain flashes of the subtle energy of a collective consciousness. It is collective, so it is not a state or a dimension we achieve, because it encompasses all dimensions and is in unity with everything. Collective consciousness is universal, so we become aware of it because it is already inside and around us. That is why it is called enlightenment, and it is not attained because it is beyond the mind. We exist in the midst of this collective consciousness. Therefore, we just have to become aware of it because it is beyond our mind's capability. Obi-Wan says, "Well, the Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. This force is the ground of our being that contains our unit consciousness and our higher consciousness that is connected to the collective. That is why we like Star Wars. It speaks to our higher self. In our unit consciousness, we are in duality and think we are a separate identity, so we go through pain and pleasure, judging others. But when we merge with our higher consciousness, we merge in unity with the collective." Albert Einstein says, "A human being is a part of a whole universe, called the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and his feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness." Lao Tzu says, "The key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness." Most of us are busy making a living and forget about the higher dimensions of life, that give us the high life. That is why the path to higher consciousness is never crowded, because it can't be reached and achieved with willpower. We need to become aware of our consciousness and rest in it by quieting down our mind, body, and emotions so we can focus inward from the external to our higher self. This reality is where our unit consciousness is connected with the collective consciousness in awareness. In our unit consciousness, we have a conscious, unconscious, and subconsciousness that keeps our mind restless. So we need to quiet them and reach the state of awareness without distraction. This is when amazing things happen as we raise our vibration and go with the universal flow to merge with it, no longer trying to control or fight it. Ram Dass said, "I no longer needed to be special because I was no longer caught up in my puny separateness that had to keep proving that I was something. I was part of the universe like a tree is, or like grass is, or like water is." In duality, everything is short-lived. Our thoughts, emotions, environment, and associations. So we are always in a hurry in the finite because it ends. But in eternity, we are not attached and just flow with changes because there is no end. This puts us in an enormous reposition from separate identities in the physical realm that suffer to one consciousness in the spiritual domain of bliss. Our physical experience in the world is a result of small collective consciousness. In different customs and habits, they create mind patterns that pull us in different directions, that keep us in restraints where we are exploited and suffer. When we shift our perspective in the collective consciousness, everything is perfect, so Christians call it heaven. But one bad thought can make a bad day. Lao Tzu said, "The key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness." Our mental and emotional actions depend on each other because the magnitude of a reaction is related to the seriousness of our thinking. Therefore, the cessation of thinking is a measure of our peace of mind and our spiritual high. Our problems are problems because we try to solve them and overthink what will happen. But when we let go, it becomes a reality that just is, not a problem, so we can flow past it. We spend most of our time making judgments and pronouncements to justify them, when everything is already decided and happening in the present. When we are quiet with music and sports, exercise, entertainment, or spiritual practices, we enjoy, stop thinking and reacting because everything becomes clear. Lao Tzu said, "Practice non-doing and everything will fall into place." In this quote, he does not mean doing nothing, but observing it happening. May the force be with you. Thanks.